Good morning and welcome to this week's online Fraserview gathering. We're glad that you could join with us. Before we begin, we want to remind you that next week will be an in-person drive-in gathering. So you can register through our email or through the website. And as we begin this morning, we invite you to sing along with the worship team and to answer the questions that Jeff is asking us as they come up on the screen.
Tenderness he sought me, weary and sick with sin, and on his shoulders brought me back to his fold again. While angels in his presence sang, until the courts of heaven rang. Oh, the love that sought me. Oh, the blood that bought me. Oh, the grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace that brought me to the fold of God. While I was sick, needy and poor and blind, he whispered to assure me, I found thee, thou art mine. I never heard a sweeter voice. It made my aching heart rejoice. Oh, the love that sought me. Oh, the blood that brought me. Oh, the grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace I'll daily ponder and sing anew his praise, with all adoring wonder his blessings I retrace. It seems as if eternal days are far too short to sing his praise. Oh, the love that sought me. Oh, the blood that bought me. Oh, the grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace that brought me to the fold of God. Sought me. Oh, the blood that bought me. Oh, the grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace that brought me to the fold of God.
Hey Fraserview, it's Jeff. Welcome to another online edition of Fraserview Online. We're glad you guys can be here with us today. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to have conversations with each other, especially when it comes to having hard and difficult and uncomfortable conversations. Whether it comes to politics and Republican or conservative, to Black Lives Matter, whether it's theological, like creation versus evolution, Did God kill Jesus? LGBTQ+, to even just what's happening here at Fraserview, especially as we start to get down the road of, do we knock down the building and make something new? To silly things like, do you put the toilet paper roll with the paper going over or the paper going under? So let's have fun, let's dig in.
My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth.
As followers of Christ, we are called to be meek. Now, I think we've all heard that saying, and I think we've all even heard the saying that meekness is not weakness. But what is meekness? The best way that I've heard it described is that meekness is the action and posture of loaning someone else your strength. That instead of, when given the opportunity of powering up for your own interest and your own benefit, that instead we willingly loan our strength and power, and in some situations even our authority, so that we can lift others up instead. Now, James, the brother of Jesus, who only proclaimed himself a Jesus follower after the resurrection, which that should just blow our minds, but that's a totally different conversation for another day. He tells us that as Christ followers, that when we engage with others, that we are to be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to anger. James tells us that as Christians, we should put ourselves in a posture of being open to learn something, as well as honoring others by giving them room to speak and to be heard. Now, James hits the nail on the head when it comes to what makes it hard to actually listen to others. As humans, we can be quick to interrupt and can become frustrated and angered quite quickly when it comes to something that we don't agree with or to something that we just don't understand. I know for myself, what usually gets in the way of me being able to listen and to engage with others really comes down to my ego and my pride. See, I have this really good ability that when I'm engaging with someone and at the end of the day I'm not getting what I want, that they're not seeing things the way that I see them, and that therefore we're clearly in an argument. And therefore I have to win that argument at all costs. So I will be very quick to interrupt. I will let my emotions get the better of me, and I'm not listening anymore. The only thing I'm listening for is for you to make a mistake that I can capitalize on. And at the end of the day, even if I do feel like I won, that means that someone had to lose. And as followers of Jesus, that's not what true love looks like. So my first question to you is this: what makes it difficult for you to listen to others, and how would meekness change that?
I'm going to jump into Jeff's question by doing some teaching about active listening. Active listening is a good way for us to be meek by loaning someone else our strength. Developing these skills enables us to have healthier relationships with everyone. They're particularly important when we're in conflict with our spouse or our children or people we work with. But it's also really valuable as we assist our friends and our family and others through the many trials and tribulations that come in life. Active listening begins by paying attention to our non-verbal communication so that it's congruent with our action of desiring to listen to someone else. Our posture should face the person directly. We should lean in slightly without crowding their personal space. We should be relaxed, which means that we need to be natural and congruent in the way our body language relates to them. Our focus should be on the person. We should offer eye contact, but not demand it. Our hands and our feet should be engaged in listening. They shouldn't be fiddling or distracted from our engagement with the person. And so being in tune in these manners should mean that our face displays our engagement with the person speaking. Remember that people look to our face to learn about our emotional state. And also our gestures should be attuned. Remember to be aware of the way in which culture and gender differences in terms of how gestures are processed is important. Active listening then continues by providing the right responses as they speak. We want to indicate that we are listening carefully by mirroring back to them what we have heard. And this means we need to listen for the emotions being communicated by the speaker. Of course, this requires that we are in touch with our own and others' emotions. As we listen to the speaker's emotions, we want to avoid the temptation to interpret, analyze, or to judge those emotions. We just want to hear them. Our focus should be on hearing the full extent of the communication that's coming from the speaker. When an appropriate moment arrives, we want to provide an empathic response or paraphrase in which we mirror back what we have heard from the person. Our empathic response should be a statement, not a question. Hopefully of less than 10 words, which restates the content and emotion the speaker has been communicating to us. This allows the person to feel like they're being heard, and then they can add to the conversation. When it comes to questions, active listening requires open-ended ones. Try asking questions which cause the speaker to elaborate and allow you to explore further with them what they're talking about. Try to avoid questions that give a yes or no answer. Also avoid interrupting when you're listening. Most commonly we interrupt by trying to fix problems, injecting our own stories, or breaking in to get more information or unnecessary details. Good active listening allows the speaker to be in control of the process. Active listening enables us to listen well to others, honouring their personhood. It reduces our defensiveness and our temptation to try to solve people's problems quickly in a way which often depowers them. So I encourage you to develop the skills of active listening as a way of offering your strength to others, just as Jesus offers his strength to us.
In a way, I think it's difficult for me to listen to others when I know the topic of discussion that's about to happen, because I've had an opportunity to formulate my opinions, my thoughts, and actually I've had a chance to put together my rebuttal to what I predict the other person might be saying in this conversation. I actually think that if I walk into a conversation with somebody and I'm completely oblivious to what we're about to talk about, I'm better armed to listen to them. But I don't think that's what Jesus meant by meekness, to live in that oblivious state. I am by nature a really curious person. I ask a lot of questions and really seek to have understanding of a situation by asking those questions. I'm the kind of person that thinks out loud, and I often use that disclaimer when I'm having a conversation with somebody. I will say, just give me a minute, I'm just thinking out loud. And part of that is because I then hope that I'm offered grace in my thinking processes, that I've not really put it all together completely in my head, but that I am thinking out loud. Now, if I were to use Jeff's definition of meekness, he says it's the action of loaning others my strength. And I actually give that person an opportunity to express their own thinking. I'm putting myself in the position of a question asker rather than in a position of an information giver. And I think that reminds me that asking questions is the way that I will better understand that person. I feel like I'm then giving them an opportunity to think out loud too. And if I am the kind of person who looks for grace for my out loud thinking, it's a prompt to me to offer that same kind of grace to somebody who is thinking out loud as well. That to me is a Jesus-centered way to listen to other people.
I think that the difficulty for me in listening to others can be frustration. When someone holds a perspective that I don't agree with, eventually I can get to the point of feeling anger towards them, especially if I don't feel like they're listening to my side. I love that definition of meekness that Jeff shared, and I would agree that the idea of meekness is having strength in an area, but not using that strength to prop yourself up, but using it to prop up others. I think that to practice meekness in my conversations is actually to lift up others. And to do that for me, it means assuming that they actually have good intent. and it means being willing to hear them out. And because I will listen to them first, I can trust that they will listen to me as well. And so that is the way that I would hope that meekness would allow me to, or would push me to be a better listener in my conversations.
When he was gone, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I'm going you cannot come. A new command I give you, love one another. As I've loved you, so you must love one another. By this all men will know that you're my disciples, if you love one another." Simon Peter asked him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus replied, "Where I'm going you cannot follow now, but you will follow later." Peter asked, "Lord, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." And Jesus answered, "Will you really lay down your life for me? I tell you the truth, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times.
Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like in our Western culture today, we often hear that we need to start listening to each other more. And that if we would start to listen to each other more, that we could start to solve our problems. Now, I think that's really cool, and I think that that is a very fundamental teaching of Jesus. Now, here's the thing. Being good listeners isn't going to solve our problems. Case in point, the Apostle Peter. Gotta love the Apostle Peter. He does a great job of listening to what Jesus has to say. He's slow to speak, he's quick to listen, and he's slow to anger, but he's missed a crucial part. What I consider to be the most important. Now, what is that? Peter's missed the step of understanding. Listening is great, but only when we put ourselves in a position when we are trying to understand, a position of learning. Why are they talking that way? Why do they think that way? Why do they feel that way? What makes them so passionate about this subject? Why are they emotional about it? What have they gone through? What have they seen? What's their story? What are they actually trying to communicate to me? The list goes on. So my question to you is this. Think of a time that you felt that you weren't understood, and how can you use that experience to grow so that you are able to understand others better? I know for me that often Lindsay will come home from work and she'll tell me she's had a hard day and it's been rough, and the boss and customers, and I'm sure we've all been there and been in that situation. And I can sometimes have this I'm just a really great helper, because I can tell her, look, next time when you're dealing with a customer, you could do it this way, or when you're talking to the boss, you could handle it like this. And she doesn't seem to appreciate that sometimes. And so I feel like I'm not being understood. And what I can take from that and learn is that in reality, in that moment when Lindsay walks through the door after a hard day of work, she's not looking for advice of what she could do better. In that moment, she's communicating to me and just looking for comfort and support, and to know that I'm there for her, and that she has been through a hard day. And again, that I can be there and support her and love her. And again, that doesn't mean that necessarily I never give her advice, but just that's not the time.
I think of a very difficult interpersonal conflict that I have been a part of. I know that there's risk in sharing a part of myself, especially when I feel wounded and completely misunderstood, because then my honesty and my integrity are put to question. And that's a really hard place for me and probably for anybody to sit. My first instinct then is to avoid sharing my feelings and my thoughts in that kind of a circumstance. Again, it's a bit of a shut down mode, bit of a give up reaction. But I don't think that's a very helpful way to be understood or to understand other people. So Jeff's question, how am I able to grow from this experience, is actually a really good question, and I'm really challenged by that. I think for me, it starts with listening for God. And that, when I think back to the experience I had, that was really the thing that grounded me. I was able to listen for God. And what I heard was God saying to me, Lou, you are my beloved. I'm going to walk with you through this darkness. You are not alone. And that really gave me strength to continue to move forward and to maybe trust a little bit again, to share my personal experiences. But the humbling part of listening for God and listening to Him say that to me is that He also says to me, and Lou, those other people, they too are my beloved, and I am going to walk with them. So I believe hearing God, listening for God, is the first step toward understanding myself better and understanding others. So the question Jeff asked, how do I grow? I'm going to start with listening for God.
I can think of many examples of being misunderstood in my life, but what comes to mind first is the experience of being a kid and often having adults minimize my experience or opinions just because of my age. Especially when it came to stuff that I believed when I was a teenager about faith and my zeal for worship. I would be frustrated when older people would sideline me and take control over me. Now, part of what I've learned with age is that humility to recognize that adults do have more experience and do have a good understanding of the world just because they've been in it longer. But I think that most of all, having this kind of recently in my mind helps me to understand the young people that I work with here. Because I was a teenager that felt misunderstood, I feel very strongly that it's good to recognize the depth of the thoughts that our youth have and to not minimize the experiences that they have because of their age. And so that's something that I believe firmly, and my experience of being misunderstood has really helped me to has really helped push me to want to care about what the youth have to say and what young people believe.
Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye. Then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye.
So getting to a place of understanding can be difficult. That's why far too often we find ourselves taking the easy way out and we settle for just judging others instead. See, it's far easier to size someone up and write them off than to get to know their thoughts, reasons, their history, and their story, to maintain a relationship or to even begin a new one. After all, they're just a Republican, they're just a Democrat, they're just a Southern evangelical Christian, they're just a spiritual liberal Christian, you know, anti-masker, etc. The list goes on for everything. It is far easier to remain in a place of, I just don't understand, how could anyone ever think that way? But that's really the thing. You don't understand. And as Christians, that's not where we're called to land. That's not what we are called to do. As Christians, we know that we're all made in the image of God. We all know that we have immeasurable worth and value in the sight of God. Now, we may find it incredibly hard to understand others, but let's be honest. How many times do we look back on our own lives and see moments and times where we feel like, I can't believe I ever did that. I can't believe I ever thought that way. What was I thinking? Which, that's kind of funny, because at the time we thought we had really good reasons, and at the time we thought it was a really good idea. And even too, what's even funnier is that we give ourselves such a quick pass of, oh, I just didn't know, and I've grown now, and it's okay. And so that's where I want to go with this for our last bit of time here. How many people do you know that make their decisions by flipping a coin or rolling a dice? And the answer is, I really can't think of anybody. Because at the end of the day, nobody thinks or does something for no reason. Maybe a better way to put it is this, that everyone thinks what they think and do what they do for what they believe to be good reasons. See, judging people dehumanizes them and it pushes them away. But empathy does the opposite. Empathy keeps relationship. With empathy, we realize that nobody thinks or does something for no reason, that everyone thinks what they think and do what they do for what they think are really good reasons, based on what they've seen and what they've experienced in their lives. With empathy, we recognize that we can disagree with each other and still love one another. We can do our best to put ourselves in someone's shoes, to put ourselves in their position and try to see it through their lens. With empathy, we love them the way God, through Christ, loved us. Yes, at the end of the day, we may not agree with them, and yes, we can still believe that what they're doing and thinking is wrong, but if we haven't learned something from them, then we have more work to do. Remaining at a place of name-calling and remaining at a place of saying, I just can't understand, is not an option for us as Christians. So I have a challenge for you this week. I want you to find someone who you disagree with, who you don't see eye to eye with, and I want you to engage in conversation with them. But here's the thing. All you get to do is ask questions. Just questions. And learn something. So my question for you this week is, what is something that you just don't understand? And when you spend your week in prayer and with Jesus, I just ask that you think about it and you be in prayer with Jesus about it and try to use empathy to see it from their view and why they think that way and why they think that's a good reason. Thanks for all the fun that we have around here. I hope to see you soon.
Worthy of every song we could ever
Father, we want to be quiet and listen to your still, small voice, whether you're speaking directly to our spirit or speaking to us through your holy word. At times, you speak to us through song, through nature, through other believers, and through the unfolding of events in our lives. As you speak to us, we want to be careful and listen to your voice so that we do not harden our hearts. Instead, we want you to fulfill in us all your purposes for our growth and for your glory. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you for joining with us this morning. A few things to remind you of. Again, we are having an in-person drive-in service next week, and so we invite you to register. You are also welcome to walk in. We will have some outdoor seating available as well, so be sure to register on our website. Also, we have gardening every Wednesday. If it's sunny out, feel free to come and join us at 6 p.m., and we will be taking care of the property here at Fraserview. So go this week listening for understanding in your relationships with others. We will see you next week. Have a great week.